Good afternoon, folks. We've got half an hour. I've got about 20 years experience. I can talk fast, but I don't intend trying to squish everything in. So what I've done is I've taken out some key bits that I hope by the time you leave here in half an hour, you'll have one or two things that you can really latch onto and make a difference to your tenders. I don't do training by embarrassment. I'm not going to get into singing or dancing. I'm not going to make a public example of anybody. However, it would help me if I could get a rough feeling for who's in the audience and what sort of tendering experience you've got, because I'll kind of move the presentation slightly according to who I've got. Could I ask for a show of hands if you've done 5 or fewer tenders? 5 or less. Okay. And can I have a show of hands if the general value of your tenders is less than £5,000? 5 up to about 500,000, and any in the really big realms with 6 digits in them, some in that category as well. Okay, what I've got here is a number of pictures of what bids look like. Bids, proposals, tenders, quotes. The terms are interchangeable. It doesn't matter what you call them. There's not a right one, there's not a wrong one. It's not that in the public sector they're always called tenders and in the private sector they're always called something else. And what I'm talking about applies equally to private sector tendering and business-to-business tendering and business-to-consumer tendering. Same rules right across the whole raft of them. Okay? Doesn't matter what language you use, and it doesn't matter what they look like. Some people produce things like this. Forth Road Bridge tender was delivered in a van. That's how big the documentation was. I question who actually reads that, and it's the other thing to remember in tendering is your client is not always logical, sensible, rational. They don't always ask what they actually want, but hey, you've got to give them as best as you can what they're looking for, okay? It may be that your tenders, your quotes, your proposals look like this. An email. It may just be something really short, or it may be something in between. You may submit it electronically, it may be in hard copy, it may be a mixture of the whole lot. Sometimes it'll be a presentation. Same rules apply to the whole lot. Long pause. Right, what we're going to be covering today, as far as I'm aware, there are 3 reasons that people want to write better bids. They either want to increase their success rate, sometimes known as a hit rate, so they want to win more work. Or they want to reduce the amount of time and effort they spend producing it. They want to kind of streamline their process. I come from an engineering background. If I can do something once and use it 6 times, that's the way to go. I love cut and paste, but only in the right situations. Okay, I don't use it rashly. The other thing that a lot of people want to do is the third one, which is eliminate tender headaches. Does anybody here enjoy writing tenders? Yay, there's always one. You're going to get job offers at the end of this. There are a few people that really love the buzzer. It's a huge opportunity writing a tender, and if you get it right, it's brilliant. But for most people, it's an unforgiving deadline, it's complex, it's difficult, it's high pressure, and there's a lot riding on it. So it's not surprising most people don't enjoy doing it. So what I'm going to do is take out some of the key points that are going to help you eliminate the headache, streamline your process, and help you win more business. Okay? And I'm going to go through each of the 5 of these things and then look at the next steps as well. What we'll do is if anybody's got questions, I'm not dashing away at the end. There's quite a lot of you, so it probably makes sense to keep the questions to the end if you're okay. You'll also have my contact details. Fire me an email, give me a phone call, and I can talk to you that way as well. Capture and planning. All the stuff that goes on up front before you even get it. Just out of interest, anybody volunteer why you write tenders? To win the work? To profile your company? To let the organisation that you're bidding to see what you can do, to make some margin, a whole lot of things. Is that all fairly? Just nod your heads if you agree with me. Yeah? Okay. That's a good objective to have. That's probably why you're going to mostly be here. It's the first fundamental mistake most people make when they're writing tenders though. Because if you think writing tenders is about you winning the work, your tender is going to be all about you. Okay? Real big mind shift change needed. This is your number 1 takeaway from today. Stop thinking about yourselves. The reason that the client has asked you, invited you to tender, or you've got this opportunity is that client's got a problem. They've got something they want solved. Now the client, I'll put my hand up here and say I can sometimes be a client, I'm selfish. I care about me, I care about my problem, my company, my business. the best will in the world, I don't actually care that much about the companies that are tendering into me until I know which one I'm going to work with. So as the tender writer, you need to acknowledge that. And you need to acknowledge this objective that the customer's got. It's got to be all about them. And during your capture and planning, the more you can find out about the customer, what their pain is, why they're buying, what's changed, is it an existing supplier that's gone wrong, is it a new requirement, the more you can find out during this capture and planning stage, thinking about it from the customer's point of view. Stop thinking about it as, well, we can give them this and we can do this from them and we can do that. No. Think about it from the customer's perspective during your capture and planning, your upfront stage, and you will be miles ahead of the competition. I'm in a very privileged position. I get to see an awful lot of tender documents because I work with an awful lot of companies, training them and doing consultancy for them. And the number of companies that submit absolutely shockingly bad documents is frightening. The good news is you don't have to be a lot better to get one step ahead of your competition. Okay? And that's the first way you can do it. If you're struggling and you need a wee note or a wee post-it on your computer or something, do what I do. And I write reader, response, result. 3 R's. I'm new school education, so that's what my 3 R's mean to me. Okay? Think about your reader. Who is this person who's going to be reading your document? The customer. Who are they? What response are they going to have when they read your document? Do you want them to think you're a cuddly, friendly, warm, customer-facing organisation? Or do you want them to think that you're a really innovative, dynamic, forward-thinking, modern company? Or do you want them to think that you're a very well-established, big track record, solid, safe pair of hands? You need to identify to yourself what response you want going on in their head when they're reading your document. Okay? And the result is, what do you want them to do? Sign the purchase order, give you good marks, recommend you to a colleague, put you forward for a proposal. Okay? So if you think of those 3 R's, and bear in mind that the tender document is all about them, not all about you, you'll be miles ahead of the competition. One of the things that a lot of people do is they get themselves in a wee bit of a tizzy. So getting yourself in the right frame of mind, particularly for those of you, and there was quite a lot of you that haven't written a lot of these tenders, okay? Get yourself in the right frame of mind. I'm an engineer. Factual evidence works for me. Factual evidence says these are the things that you need to be able to write a good tender. Okay? I'm not saying you need to be a technical expert, but you need to know enough about the solution that you're proposing or have other people that can input to it, hence technically capable, okay? But you're going to have to write clearly and accurately, work methodically, do what the customer asks, care about detail. Funny old thing, that is exactly what every client wants you to do when you win the work. So if you don't demonstrate that in your tender, they're not going to believe you're going to do it. So if you hand in a dog-eared thing with lots of mistakes and errors and omissions that didn't address their requirements, and you were working on it at the 11.5 hour, and they know that, they're going to assume that's how you're going to work for them. They're not going to give you the work. So the way you approach the tender document is absolutely fundamental. Most people in this room, I suspect, English is a native language, or a variation, Scottish. What you think intrinsically is what you write. So if you're in the right state of mind, thinking about them, thinking about the customer, thinking about being logical and methodical, it will come out in the way you write. The last one about do not procrastinate. We all do it. Does anybody not do it? Probably the same man that likes tenders. We all procrastinate to a certain amount, right? The only person you're harming when you procrastinate is yourself. If you procrastinate, you're going to run right up to the wire. You're going to be working on that. I don't know how many of you are aware of time management, important and urgent. You're going to be doing things at the last minute. You're going to be stressed. Quality work's not going to be good. Give yourself the benefit of time. Start working a wee bit ahead of time. Second point was the bid, no bid decision. Do you actually go for it? Some companies use very, very complex matrices and schematics to decide whether or not to do a bid or no bid decision. Those of you that are in the multi-million-pound contracts, I would expect you to have a fairly rigorous process, because you then check back when you win or lose a tender, was your decision-making process at the start right? For those of you that are in a much less regular or smaller value, ask yourself 3 questions. Will the contract make you money? Now, if the answer is no, you're still allowed to bid it, But you need to have identified that this isn't going to make you money and there's got to be a good reason for doing it. It may affect the amount of time you spend on it or some of the other things. So you ask yourself that. Can you actually do the work and or partner with other people that can also do the work? Okay? Fundamental stuff, but you'd be amazed how many folk get 3/4 of the way writing a tender and then think, oh, there's something there I can't do. But they've already spent days and weeks doing the work. And the last one I paraphrased, but will it make you happy? Is this an absolute nightmare customer? Is it a nightmare job that you really don't want to get involved in, or you only want to get involved in at a higher margin? Okay? However you come to your bid, no bid decision, I would impress on you, do it in a structured way. Do not just start working on it, particularly those of you that are new to tendering. Don't be so flattered that you've been asked to tender that you think you must submit it. Sometimes clients like to know who's in, and I know there's all the good reasons sometimes for putting tenders in that way. But a client will respect you a lot more if you phone up or write them a note and say, I'm very sorry, I am not going to tender on this occasion because I cannot spend the time preparing a credible response for you, and I don't like letting clients down. Or whatever reason you come up with. They will think an awful lot more for you from that than somebody that puts in a half-baked tender which they have got to write, they've got to read, they've got to mark, and they've got to give you feedback on. Okay? This is an example for those of you that have, right. This is nearly an example. What it is a picture of a flow chart, and it's the way that some people will take bid or no bid decisions. So what they do is they give themselves some strategic questions, and it may be things like, do we know the competitive position? Is it important to us? Does this work fit with our strategic position? Is it important to us? And you then come to a bid or no bid decision. Some people do it by questions that they then give scores to. If you get score more than 50, you decide to bid it. If you score less than 50, you don't. Small contracts, infrequent, just have a think about it. Think about those 3 questions. Bigger contracts, you need a structured process. Anybody ever been told it's all about price? Doesn't matter what we write, it's only the price that matters. Yeah, a few nodding heads. Yep, it's not. Okay? If you only put a bid in based on the factor of price, people will judge you based on price. This is quite a lengthy example, which I'm going to slow down. I'm going to condense slightly. But if I go and buy a waterproof jacket, I go out wanting a waterproof jacket that's got Velcro at the sleeves because I don't like getting rain up my sleeves, and it's got a double-ended zip because I like to be able to get into my hankies and my pockets. That is my specification for a waterproof jacket. And I know I'm going to have to spend about 100 or 150 quid on that waterproof jacket. Okay? It's like your customer, they've written a spec, they know roughly what they want to spend. When I walk into the shop, the very first thing I see is a jacket for 20 quid. Chances are I walk past it and I then find reasons to justify my decision. It won't be good enough. The seams will come apart after a couple of weeks. It'll be cheap and nasty. It'll let the rain in. Because I've got an expectation in my head of price, I expect it to come in that range. Now, because I've got Aberdonian roots, I lean towards the £140 jacket. Like your customers, I don't want to spend more money than I have to. Both the £140 and the £150 jacket meet my spec. They've both got Velcro and they've both got a double-ended zip. I'm just about to pick up the £140 one, so they're just about to buy from your competition, and they suddenly see in the other one, the other jacket, it says, I am machine washable. Now that wasn't in my spec. It may not be in the spec that comes out from your client, but machine washable is really important to me. And so I change my buying decision, and I then go and buy the machine washable one that's a wee bit more. And you can do that in your tenders. This is how you beat the competition. You put in what they call added value, extra items, things that don't cost you anything. You don't make your product machine washable on the off chance the client wants it, but you make absolutely sure that the things that you do and you do well, you write them down. And if it's something that you do better than your competition, put it in lights. Don't bash the competition, don't be unprofessional, but make sure you write it. If you've got good staff retention, you've got great experience and you know the crowd down the road don't, make sure you write that in.